I like breaking the stereotype. I like people to see that being in prison does not define me. It doesn't mean that I'm a horrible person. It doesn't mean that I fit any type of stereotype. It's important to me for people to hear my story, because then they see why I was where I was and the things that led me to end up in prison. Because when I tell people I was in prison, the first thing they're like, "You were in prison? What did you do?" And then I say, "Well, I killed somebody." And it just starts this entire question fest. And so I've gotten to where a lot of times, job interviews, for instance, I just tell them straight up, right from the beginning, before I waste your time or my time, I was in prison, this is why. I make sure that that's in the first day that I meet people, really. I want them to know where I came from, who I am, and where I'm going. It means allowing people to see that their stereotype of someone who's been in prison is false. When I introduce myself to people and I tell them that I've been to prison and I spent a large amount of my life in prison, they don't believe me at first. I've had people be like, "Man, stop joking, you were not in prison." But it is part of who I am, and I don't like to waste people's time. I don't like to hide anything, because the only explanation for a lot of things in my life is that I was in prison, and I was in prison from the time I was 16 until I was 46 years old. And I've learned that by telling my experiences, both before and during prison and after prison, help people to open up about themselves. My vulnerability and my transparency tends to bring out the same in other people. And I've learned a lot of things about people since I've been out that otherwise, if I hadn't told them, that I'd been in prison, or that I'd been through a lot of trauma as a child and growing up, that they wouldn't have shared with me. And I feel like being open like that and being vulnerable allows other people to realize that they're not alone. And that, for me, was the biggest part of growing up and being in traumatic situations and being abused, is because I felt alone. I felt that no one would understand. My peers seemed very happy and like they had this great life, and on the outside I had a great life, but I was being abused. And so I felt that I was the only person going through what I was going through. So when I share the things that I've experienced, it's an opportunity for other people to know that they're not alone. Whatever their alone may mean to them, that in the middle of their stuff and their mess, that they're not the only people that are experiencing it, and that if I overcame, that there's hope for them to overcome also. It's mostly shock. I get a lot of shock when I tell people that I was in prison, especially for the amount of time I was in prison. And then generally the second thing was, did you kill somebody? Because I spent so many years in prison that, I can't even count the amount of people who have said, "So who'd you kill?" Because you don't go to prison for that long of time unless you've done something pretty bad. A lot of people equate prison with all of the movies and the shows, and like, is it really like Orange is the New Black? I'm like, it is nothing like Orange is the New Black. People want to know what goes on in prison. It made it easier for me to talk about myself and to talk about my story. Because before, truth be told, I hadn't conceptualized my story. And so when I told my story at graduation, mine was called Running to Stand Still. I've ran from things my entire life. My mom said the first time I ran away from home, I was 4. And I vaguely remember taking my younger brother out in a snowstorm in Indiana, outside of Indianapolis, because I was being molested and I wanted to run. And that's what I did. And it became a pattern, and truth be told, helped me see the patterns in my life. And seeing those patterns allowed me to identify the pattern and the track that I was still on in my relationships. When I was inside, I had relationships with females, and it was very ironic because when I got into Truth Be Told and I identified those patterns, I stopped being in relationships because I knew that I was still perpetuating the same patterns of behavior that had started a long time ago, you know, being in abusive homes. And I equated a healthy relationship as an abusive relationship. If I was not being talked down to or being abused, then I wasn't loved. And when I identified that as being a fallacy in my life, then I started to identify what healthy looked like and what I wanted. And so once I could identify what I wanted and what was important to me, then I started attributing that to the values in a relationship. And I wanted to get a healthy relationship. I wanted to be loved and I wanted to be cherished. And so that's, Truth Be Told really made a difference for that, because I could see that what I thought was right and what I thought was healthy was not. And so before Truth Be Told, I was trapped in this vicious cycle of abuse that I had put myself in. But after Truth Be Told, I realized that I have boundaries and I learned to set healthy boundaries. And because of that, I am a much happier and healthier person. It keeps me grounded. So when I first got out, I kept in touch with 2 different people who were inside. And I am no longer in touch with them. Not because I don't feel that it's a valuable thing to be in touch with people on the inside, but I wanted to sever that part of my life. And being involved with the Beyond Bars community has helped me stay, I remember where I came from, you know. And part of the reason that I didn't want to stay in touch with my friends inside was because it was hard. It was really, really difficult to know everything that they were going through and know that there was nothing I could do to change it. And it became wearing, and it became very, very emotionally and mentally difficult to stay with one foot in and one foot out, because that's how I felt. I felt like I was still trapped in there because my friends were trapped in there, and I had to shake it. And I did, and then I felt guilty about it. And so being with people who are out and understand that, and have, you know, I have friends not inside who were inside with me, and they have that same struggle, you know, because you don't really leave prison. And I couldn't, mentally, I was just like, I can't do this. And it just helps me remember where I came from. And I see the struggles that those of us that were incarcerated still have. And I know that I'm not alone. Just like I wasn't alone in there with the struggle, there's still struggles out here. And I have to remember that wherever we are, there's struggles. But our struggles for being formerly incarcerated are more unique. And being in a community of people who understand that, it helps me. It helps me to continue to move forward. Truth Be Told is important, and it's valuable, and it's a worthy endeavor because it allows the women who participate to have a voice. Silence is a tool of the oppressor. And when women or people, human beings, are not allowed to speak, and they're not allowed to tell their story, and they're not allowed to be heard, it creates just this darkness and this depression and oppression that it kills your spirit. This is important because for some women, they never will have been heard. They've never been able to speak up for themselves. They don't know how. And this teaches us how. It might be through writing, it might be through speaking, it might be through dance, it might be through drawing and creating something. But it allows us and allows the women involved to finally communicate all this stuff inside, whatever that stuff looks like, because everybody's stuff looks different. And the best thing that you can do is allow somebody to be heard and to listen. And that was the thing that I really, really loved about Truth Be Told, is it's a safe space, and it's a community where you can be heard, and whatever your truth may be, you're not going to be judged for that truth. Whatever your story is, you're going to be embraced, and you're going to know that people love you and they accept you, and they want you to be happy and healthy and whole. And that is the biggest thing about Truth Be Told, is that when you start speaking your truth, whatever your truth looks like, there's freedom in that truth. And whether you're inside or you're outside, whether you're ever going to be outside, you can have freedom once you can speak your truth. It says the truth will set you free. The truth does set you free.